So we're on Torrey Creek today, and we were looking at some soil and got to thinking about the soil sponge and how different factors help us hold moisture in the soil and why that would be important. Nick is a fish biologist and a project manager for Trout Unlimited, and they have some really interesting projects that relate to helping keep water in the soil. So I wanted her to tell you about that a little bit today.
Yeah, so some of the projects that we work on with Trout Unlimited are some projects called beaver dam analogs. And basically what that means is we get to come into some streams ecosystems and pretend to be beavers. Beaver dams that we put into the streams or that beavers put into the streams, they slow that water down on the system. And when we slow that water down, especially along these creeks, we can re-wet the sponge. And why that might be important is then we can encourage some riparian vegetation growth along the banks, and trout especially, they like cold water. If we have shady water, it's cooler, and when we have those deeper pools, it's also colder temperatures for the trout. By doing projects like beaver dam analogs or having beavers in your ecosystem, we're definitely able to see that effect when we look at our soils and the sponge.
The water holding capacity of soil is in fact impacted by several factors. One of which is soil texture, so a clay soil is going to hold more water than a sandy soil. The other thing is organic matter. So looking at these two soils, these were collected just a few feet apart along this creek, and there's a distinct color difference and aggregation difference if you look closely. And so for some reason, and it may have to do with what types of plants are growing there or other factors, this darker, more heavily aggregated soil has more carbon and more soil organic matter than this one, although both are beautiful soils. And the aggregation is a direct result of that carbon that's coming into the soil through the plant roots through photosynthesis. So when we're looking at soil here along the creek and in the ecosystem, what we want to look at is soil that's going to support a lot of plant life, right? And so why is that important? Plants support wildlife, right? Livestock, humans. And so we want to be able to make sure that our soils are high functioning, and part of that is water, right? So do they hold water, and do they give that water up to the plants when they need it, right? The other thing to remember is that plants build soil, right? So what's happening here is these plants are photosynthesizing, and they're pulling carbon out of the atmosphere and putting it into their tissues and then into their roots and then feeding the soil microbial population, right? And that is what we call part of the carbon cycle, and they are fixing carbon into the soil. And in order to grow, they need water. And so that's what Dominique was talking about with refilling the soil sponge, making sure that water's in the soil so the plants can grow, the wildlife and the livestock can eat those plants.